Hi, and welcome to Classic Guitar Rock. I'm Jeremy. Happy Valentine's Day to you and yours. Hope you have a great one. Just an update for today, February 14th, 2023. I've got some emails here that I want to get to and just a few things that we want to talk about today. Hey, follow us on Twitter at Classic Guitar R1. We're slowly taking over the world. Twitter's one of the ways we're doing it, so go out and follow us. Also, you can check out the Classic Guitar Rock podcast. It's on all the major platforms. Check it out there. And of course, here on YouTube, you can check us out. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. So let's jump right in here. I've got a few emails we want to get to. This is from Gunnar Nergard. Hope I'm pronouncing that right, Gunnar. Hello, Classic Guitar Rock. My name is Gunnar Nergard from Norway. I'm playing in a Norwegian heavy rock band called the Halloween Project. If you want to check out our music, we would be very grateful. We released our debut album, Masters of It All, in November 2019, and a single, Signs of the Times, in November 2020. Both recorded at TNT guitarist Ronnie Lee Tekro's studio in Norway. He is our mentor and producer. In July 2020, we released a single together with British and Norway located band called the Fluffy Jackets to celebrate original Nazareth guitarist Manny Charlton's 80th birthday. During 2023, we will release our second album. Cheers, Gunnar Nergard. Gunnar, thanks so much for the email. Thanks for following us. And guys, I did pop out to Spotify to check out the Halloween Project. It's great. Give it a listen. That's the Halloween Project. You can find them on Spotify. And Gunnar, good luck to you and your band. And definitely keep in touch. It would be awesome to maybe do a review of that album. So, let's stay in touch. Another email. This is from Dave B. Hello, my name is Dave, and I'm a big fan of your podcast. It appears you and I are the same age. Sorry about that. You and I are the same age and apparently share a lot of the same favorite bands. I'm a big Rush and Black Sabbath fan, but also a huge fan of Guy Speranza era Riot. I shared your episode about Riot with several of my fellow Riot fans. Obviously, they were more popular in the Northeast U.S. where I live than in other parts of the world, but I think they may be the most underrated band ever. Keep up the good work, Dave B. Dave, I can't agree more. Riot, and I think it's one of my early, I was so passionate about Riot, it was like my third or fourth episode we did on the podcast, and I think it's called The Greatest Band You've Never Heard Of. I'm a huge Riot fan, and in fact, Fire Down Under is in my top 5 best metal albums. Not just metal, hard rock albums. It's one of my favorite albums ever. So everyone, and you can stream it, everyone stop what you're doing and go listen to Fire Down Under. It's a phenomenal album. Guy Speranza was an excellent singer. Mark Reale, I think that's how you pronounce it, Mark Reale, died a few years ago, but was a tremendous guitar player and kind of the driving force musically behind the band. Guy Speranza left after like 3 albums. Talented guy. He has since passed also, but he just didn't have the personality for the rock and roll lifestyle. I think he tended to be a lot mellower personality, a little more low key. And so he kind of backed out of the band and was replaced by a guy named Rhett Forrester, who also was phenomenal, did 2 or 3 great albums. Born in America, a great album. He tragically was killed in a carjacking incident a number of years ago, a long time ago. So some tragedy, some untimely deaths associated with the band. 3 guys, Guy, Mark, and Rhett, all died way too soon. I guess there's never really a good time to die, but you get what I'm saying, right? They were all very young when they died, which was sad, and all 3 very talented. Riot took a turn, right? Riot is also looked at, viewed as one of the pioneers in like speed metal. So their album Thunder Steel, which I think came out in about 86, many people hold that album up as one of the pioneering speed metal albums. But the albums I'm talking about, you know, Narita, Fire Down Under, the Guy Speranza albums, they are not speed metal. They are more classic metal. In fact, here's what's funny. Riot's from the Northeast of the U.S., and yet they're kind of thrown into the new wave of British heavy metal because they opened for a lot of those bands. They went to England and played with a lot of those tours. So a lot of times people kind of fit Riot in with that new wave of British heavy metal, which is great music. There's nothing wrong with being, tossed into that group, right? But they were actually an American band, but just a really good band. Fire Down Under, phenomenal album. So check it out. You can go back and check out the episode where we talk about it and we go into a little history there. But everyone should listen to Riot. Like I said, they kind of morphed into the speed metal thing. If you're into that, that's great. They have some good stuff there. I was more into the kind of the classic era of Riot with Guy Speranza, and Rhett Forrester's great too. But my favorite are the 3 albums with Guy Speranza, especially Fire Down Under. So check that out. Okay, another email here. Classic guitar rock. Classic rock seems to be a very male-dominated genre, LOL. But I'm female and I love it. I love the episode you and John discussed music released in 1978. That was my sophomore year in high school, and I was literally checking off many of the albums you mentioned that are in my collection. I have to say my very favorite from that year is Van Halen. But there is so much more. But there was so much great music in the late 70s and early 80s. Thanks for keeping it alive. Cheryl in New Mexico, formerly Ohio. Well, thanks, Cheryl. Hope things are going well in New Mexico. And 78, if you look at that year, and we talk about this in the episode, just think about the great debut albums from 78. You mentioned Van Halen. Could there have been a more seismic debut album than Van Halen? Van Halen came out in 78. Dire Straits, 78. The Cars debut in 78. Those are just 3 off the top of my head. 78 was a great year. And for me, 78, I was probably like 11, 12 years old. And that was when I was really starting to pay attention. And even the mainstream music of the day, when you go back and listen to it, it is so good. Nick Gilder, right? That album is awesome. We talked about it in that episode. I believe City to City, Jerry Rafferty, Baker Street. I mean, these are mainstream pop records, were so phenomenal. The production was so wonderful, and music was just a craft in 1978. So yeah, go back and listen to that episode if you want to. We talk about a ton of great albums that came out in 1978. And Cheryl, thank you so much for following us and listening. I got a few more here. Hi, Jeremy. I'm a follower from UK. Also a big fan of Def Leppard. Loved your interview with the Def Lep pod host. Don't remember his name. Like you, my favorite my favorite Def Leppard album is High and Dry. I'm a few years older than you and experienced the new wave of British heavy metal firsthand. He's got new wave of British heavy metal in quotes. So many great bands and memories. I'll keep listening. Alan Graff. Alan, thank you so much. And we have a few followers and listeners in the UK. And that episode where we interviewed the host of the Def Lep podcast was really good. And by the way, you have to check out the Def Lep podcast if you're a Def Leppard. Even if you're not a Def Leppard fan, it is so well done, so entertaining. And this guy's so unlike me, I'm riddled with ADD. His attention to detail, what he puts into his episodes, really excellent. So check out the Def Lep podcast for sure. And High and Dry, for my money, the best Def Leppard album. Hysteria was a huge album. That's the one that really made them just massive globally. Pyromania, same thing. That kind of launched them into MTV. That put them at the top, and then Hysteria put them over the top. Right, just a huge album. But for my money, High and Dry, a Mutt Lange produced album. It's their rockingest album, and it's just my favorite album. But Def Leppard, by the way, Def Leppard still puts on a great show. If you have a chance to go see Def Leppard live, go see him live for sure. Thank you, Alan, all the way from the UK. Appreciate it. Last one here. CGR. That stands for Classic Guitar Rock. CGR. I'm a radio guy, and I really like all the radio style sweepers and jingles and bumpers you guys use on the podcast. Thank you. Also a fan of the music, of course. May I recommend a band for you to discuss? Blue Oyster Cult. I'd love that, and I think you'd be surprised at how many fans BOC has. Keep rocking, RB. RB, thank you. I did review the last BOC album that came out about a year and a half ago. I really like that album. And I'm also a huge fan of Richie Castellano, the Band Geeks guy. If you're not following Band Geeks or Richie Castellano on YouTube, make sure you follow these guys. Richie is in BOC, and he has been for, 5 or 6 years. He's been touring with them for a long time. I think at one time he played keyboards. He's now mostly plays second guitar. Just a phenomenally talented guy. And Band Geeks are awesome. Probably the best cover band that you'll see on YouTube. One of the very best. Super talented. So I'm a huge fan of Richie and of Band Geeks, so I highly recommend them. Blue Oyster Cult. I've got Secret Treaties. I've probably got 5 of their albums. And they've got some tunes that I love. I'm just being honest. It's hard for me. There are some bands that I will love every single song on an album. Okay, Rush is that way to me. At least up until about 1990. Their newer stuff, I don't really feel this way, but any Rush album up to 1990, I love every track on every album. Blue Oyster Cult, sometimes it's a slog for me to get through albums because not every song grabs me. Every album will have at least 2 or 3 gems that are awesome. And you could say that about most bands, to be honest. So BOC is not in that level that I put like Rush to me, who's one of my all-time favorite bands. But they're really good. They're a smart band, right? They're an intelligent band. Lyrically, they've got interesting things going on. I'm just going to be honest here. What Blue Oyster Cult suffered from in the video age was they weren't the best looking band, right? They had nothing in the way of eye candy, right? Which is sad. But that's the way it was in the 80s. So Blue Oyster Cult didn't have the same success that a lot of bands did because they didn't have the look, right? But man, They have some great material, and I'm a fan. I would absolutely like to go in depth and talk about Blue Oyster Cult. So we'll do that coming up. All right, so those are all my emails. The only thing I really wanted to talk about, and I think many of you will be on the same page with me. We saw it first with Journey, right? Journey is still fighting amongst themselves, squabbling. Now, over the last week or so, it's Pink Floyd, right? It's Roger bickering with David in public. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. Bands, please keep all this bickering to yourselves, because all it makes us do is choose sides, okay? I don't want to have to choose between Neil Schon and Jonathan Cain. I don't want to have to choose between Roger Waters and David Gilmour, right? Fans love the bands, they love the music, and they don't need to hear all your pissing matches, right, in public. Keep it to yourself. That's just a tip from me, okay? But yeah, the Pink Floyd thing has just gotten weird over the last few weeks. Roger's always been outspoken. He's said some stupid things, done some stupid things. David has always been a little more even-tempered and measured, and I'll just be honest. I'm a Dave fan, not necessarily a Roger fan, but I'm a Pink Floyd fan, right? The sum of the parts is greater than the whole. The whole is better than the sum of its parts. You know what I'm trying to say? They were all better as Pink Floyd. Once they split up, actually, Pink Floyd was still very successful without Roger, at least for a couple albums and a few tours, right? Roger, once he left, has never gotten close to replicating the success or reach he had with Pink Floyd. But, the last thing I read is, Roger is re-engineering the Dark Side of the Moon without the other guys. So I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know. One thing I read is he's adding speaking parts to things, and it's going to be a cluster. Just leave it alone. Leave it alone, Roger. But Roger has said that, Dave and Rick Wright, they had no ideas, right? Any ideas were his. They couldn't write, which is ironic because, Pink Floyd has great lyrics, right? But to me, what's great about Pink Floyd is the music, right? You put in Dark Side of the Moon, and it's this musical journey. And it's ironic that possibly the one contributing the least musically was Roger, right? I could be wrong. I wasn't there. He might have come up with ideas and suggestions and all of this. But Gilmour and Rick Wright are all over that album. Gilmour, obviously the better singer. And just so much of the textures and sounds that we hear were keyboards and guitar. So I don't know the dynamic between Roger and Dave. Dave's wife, I don't know if I can say she started it, but she had mentioned something about, Roger being anti-Semite and misogynistic. And to be honest, guys, there's kind of a track record there, but that just kind of got things started. What's my whole point? My point is it's sad, right? So a tip for all you legacy bands, don't fight in public, because we don't want to choose sides. We love your music, okay? We want to be a fan of all of you, right? And when you fight in public, whether it's Pink Floyd or whether it's Journey or Rat, it just makes it hard for us to do that. So just stop it. Okay, be big boys. Okay. Anyways, thanks so much for tuning in today. Thanks for following the podcast, following us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter if you're on Twitter, and we'll see you next time right here on the Classic Guitar Rock Show.